understandings in the Quran. The first one is fear, al-khashya wal-hayba, fear and having awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next one is, next meaning of taqwa in the Quran is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obeying Him. And the third is removing from the heart diseases or sins. And that is the reality of taqwa. The reality of taqwa is tanzih al-qalb an al-dhunubi, removing diseases or removing sin from the heart. However, taqwa is that which can be defined as ijtinab al-nawahi wa imtithal al-awamir, doing that which Allah has told you to do and staying away from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to stay away from. Bismillah. I mentioned several benefits in the Quran where Allah mentioned taqwa and mentions what you will receive if you have taqwa. If you have taqwa, Allah will remove the difficulty from you. If you have taqwa, Allah increases you in Jannah. If you have taqwa, Allah gives you ease in difficult times. If you have taqwa, Allah increases your provisions. All these are in the Quran. I mentioned yesterday several verses of Quran that tell you the benefit of having taqwa. Bismillah.
To recompense for us, okay? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The recompense of works. Those possessed of sound hearts and upright minds know that they will be required for what they do in this life, that they will reap what they sow, that they will be judged just as they judge others, and that they are heading towards that which they have forwarded for themselves.
The page number so people know?
Page number 7?
Number 7 or wait?
Section 2, yeah. How can such people not know this? How can such people not know this or fail to be certain of this when what they believe and trust in comes from what they hear in the perfect revelation of God and the utterances of His prophets? They are sources that impart conviction and certitude in one whose heart God illuminates and whose breast He dilates. So be present of heart and attentive ear, and listen to what may awaken you from your heedlessness and rouse you from your slumber. Act well for your own good and save yourself. On a day when no wealth shall avail, nor children save those who come to God with a sound heart. Quran. God the Exalted has said,
يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. On a day when no wealth will benefit you, and your children will benefit you. What will benefit you? Allah says in the next verse, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except those who come to Allah with a heart that is salim, straight, pure, free of diseases. That's why the heart is important. We actually read this yesterday. Where did we leave off?
Yeah, I got you. I know.
Okay, so.
The Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the Holy Spirit whispered into my heart, live as long as you wish, you shall die. Love whatever
عش ما شئت فإنك ميت. Live as long as you want, because you're going to die. You know? Live as long as you want, you're going to die.
You should love whatever you wish, you should be separated from it.
وأحبب ما أحببت فإنك مفارقة. Love whoever you want, because eventually you're going to leave that person. Or that person is going to leave you. Love whoever you want. Do what you want, you're going to die. Love whoever you want, because either you're going to die or that person who you love is going to leave you. Either going to leave you by walking away from you, or leave you in terms of physically in the world.
Do whatever you wish, you shall be rewarded for it.
وَعَمَا مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ تُجْزَى بِهِ. Do what you want. Do what you want because you're going to be rewarded. If you do good, you'll be rewarded good. If you do bad, you're going to be rewarded with hell.
And the Prophet ﷺ said, benevolence does not decay.
In the hadith yesterday, the Prophet, in the hadith yesterday you mentioned, ba'uda, far, distant is the one who ذكرت عنده فلم يصل عليه. And Jibreel said, قل آمين. Yesterday in the hadith, in the khutbah, Jibreel came to the Prophet and said, far, distant, far away is the one when you're mentioned, when your name is mentioned, and you don't say, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, they are far. And Jibreel said to the Prophet, say Ameen. Say Ameen. Allahumma stajib. Allahumma stajib. Allah, Ameen was Ameen. Ameen. It means, oh Allah, answer this prayer. So Jibreel is telling the Prophet, say this, say Ameen. Make Allah answer this prayer. In other words, if you don't say Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad when the Prophet's name is mentioned, you're far. And so what does it mean if you do say it? You're close. People say, la. Keep quiet. The Prophet didn't say keep quiet. The Prophet said, the one who does not say Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, he's far. If you want to follow the Prophet, that's what the Prophet said. As simple as that. And then the Prophet in the hadith sahih, al-bakhil, my eyes are tight. من ذكرت عنده فلم يصلي علي. Bakhil, tight is the one who, when I mentioned, does not say Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad.
And the Prophet ﷺ said, when evidence does not decay, sins are not forgotten, the judge does not die. As you judge, so shall you be judged. And he relates on behalf of his Lord, O my servants, it is but your deeds that I count for you, then I shall pay you in full for them. He who then finds good, let him thank God, and he who finds otherwise, let him blame none but himself. And he said, do not insult the dead, for they
do not insult the dead. شوف لا تسبوا الموتى فإنهم قد أفاضوا إلى ما قدموا. Don't say anything bad about the dead. Don't curse the dead. Don't say anything bad about them. And why? Because they've gone already to that which they have sent ahead. They've gone ahead to meet that which they've sent ahead. The good deeds or the bad deeds. In particular the ulama. Don't say anything bad about the ulama. Particularly those ulama who the ummah has agreed upon as being from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Like Imam Nawawi, Imam Shafi'i, these great ulama. Malik, Abu Hanifa, Abd Alawi, all these big ulama. You're going to say something bad about him. Right. If you don't want this, the scholars differ between each other. Fair enough. But saying that some of the great scholars of the past were people of bid'ah or kufr, you have to be careful. One of the signs of a bad su'l khatimah, of a bad ending, of ending on not being able to say la ilaha illallah. Even if there's nothing wrong with you, but you not being able to say it. One of the reasons for you dying in a bad way is people cursing the ulama. If you don't believe me, go on. Curse the ulama, see how you're going to die. That's mujarrab, the ulama, or people who cursed the ulama in the past, they've always died in a bad way. Either left Islam, or they can't say la ilaha illallah.
And the Prophet he who then finds good, let him thank God, and he who finds otherwise, let him blame himself. And he said, do not insult the dead, for they have gone to that which they have forwarded for themselves. And he said, a slave will be raised to a higher rank in the garden than his master. The master will say, O Lord, this man was my slave in the world. He will say, transcendently, I have merely rewarded him for his deeds.
You have the slave and the slave master, or the servant and the person in charge of the servant. Sometimes the servant will gain a higher rank with Allah Azza wa Jalla, be closer to Allah, be higher in heaven than the slave master. In terms of society, some at the bottom end of society may be better than some at the higher end of society with regards to Allah due to good deeds. And vice versa, the way around.
Ali,
Sayyidina Ali is full of amazing wisdoms. There's a book called Hikam, the wisdom of Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajhah. Sayyidina Ali has many important pieces of advice, like a line or two, and within those lines is amazing works, amazing wisdoms. Listen to this wisdom.
This world is the abode of works.
This world is the world of works. Ad-dunya dar al-amal. This world is the world of works. Prayer, zakah, read the Quran, computer classes, being nice, giving sadaqah, work.
There are no rewards in it.
But there's no rewards in this world, generally speaking. You don't have to go to heaven now in this world. But this world is where you work. But the payday, when you get paid, when you get the presents, is the day of Eid. The day of Eid is when you go to, when you leave this world.
The hereafter is the abode of rewards.
وَالْآخِرَةِ دَارُ الْجَزَاءِ وَلَا عَمَلْ فِيهَا. And the next world is the world of reward and there's no works. In heaven you don't have to pray. In heaven you don't have to do zakah. You don't have to do anything.
There are no works in it. So act in the abode of no rewards for the sake of the abode of no works.
فَعْمَلُوا فِي الدَّارِ لَا جَزَاءَ فِيهَا فِي الدَّارِ لَا عَمَلْ فِيهَا. So work in this world in preparation for the next world where there's no work to be done. So work in this world where there's no reward, for the next world where there's no work but there's all reward.
All the aforementioned quotes that indicate the occurrence of recompense were provided as a reminder. Otherwise, they are well known to common believers and the
I've got a line here. I've got a probably never did. وقال الحسن البصري, Hasan al-Basri, from the Salaf of this ummah, he said, may Allah have mercy, يقول الله لأهل الجنة ادخلوا الجنة برحمتي. Allah says, enter into heaven with my mercy. Understand this? The ulama have said that people don't enter heaven on the works. You and I, if we enter into heaven, inshallah, we don't enter into heaven through our prayer, through our zakah, through our hajj. No, we don't. And he said to the Prophet, not even you, Ya Rasulullah. He goes, not even me. I enter through the rahmah, the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's what gets us into heaven. But what's the point of 7 levels of heaven? That's where your works now, depending on how sincere, how clean your heart was, how good you were in this life, will depend on how high you go up. But in terms of getting in, it's through Allah's mercy. And then it says, وَخْلُدُوا فِيهَا بِنِيَّاتِكُمْ وَصَالِحَةً. And live in heaven based on your good intentions, the good intentions that you had. Live in heaven forever with the good intentions that you had. وَاقْتَسِمُوهَا بِأَعْمَالِكُمْ. And gain it, these high ranks, through your good deeds. And he says, everything I mentioned.
Otherwise, they are well known to common believers in the elite alike. Yeah.
Everything we mentioned before, nothing new. I've gone to the people, there's nothing new here for most of us. There's nothing here that we haven't heard or we don't believe in so far.
They are so well known that even the most simple-minded of believers are privy to them.
Yes, even a basic Muslim will know everything I've just mentioned. There's nothing new. Listen.
3. God's satisfaction and His wrath.
We work for Allah's satisfaction. Rada al-Rabb. Allah's satisfaction. We don't necessarily work for heaven in of itself. In as much that if heaven didn't exist, we wouldn't worship Allah. Yes, we would worship Allah. If heaven existed or not, the Sahaba and the awliya, the real believers, whether there's heaven or hell, doesn't matter. They're still going to worship Allah. They're still going to pray Fajr. They're still going to fast. Why? Because Allah deserves to be worshipped.
It was God's will to associate His good pleasure to obedience to Him, and His wrath to disobedience. He promised those who obey Him admittance into the garden by His mercy, and those who disobey Him to be cast into the fire according to His justice and wisdom. God the Exalted has said,
Allah says, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يُدْخِلُهُ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. These are the bounds of God. Boundaries. The boundaries of Allah. Everything mentioned in the Quran are the boundaries. Don't go beyond the line. Don't step over the line. Whoever listens to Allah, whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, he will enter into heaven and live there forever. In heaven there are gardens and lakes. And I mentioned before, when you go to parks, people spend councils and governments spend a lot of money on parks because people like to go to parks. People like to go and see green and see rivers and see lakes. You feel relaxed. Jannah will be like that, but Jannah will be higher level.
That is the immense triumph. And he who disobeys God and His Messenger and transgresses His bounds, He will admit him into a fire, abiding therein forever, and he will be and his will be a humiliating torment. Every Muslim who believes in La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, will either go to heaven straight away or may enter into hell for a period of time and then leave. If any believer has La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah will always leave hell. Should they enter into hell, will always leave it. Okay. He has commanded His believing servants to hasten to His. The ulama have mentioned in terms of non-Muslims 3 levels in the books of traditional books of Aqidah. The ulama mentioned 3 levels in terms of non-believers. There are the kuffar. There are those non-believers, the kuffar, who haven't come across anything. They haven't come across the Prophet. They haven't come across anything. No religion. Nothing has come to them whatsoever. These people who nothing has come to them at all of anything, maybe live in the jungle, maybe live in the Amazon somewhere, nothing's come to them. They are people of Ahl Fitra. These are people who Allah Azza wa Jalla won't throw them into hell. Why? Because no guidance has come to them. Then you have one section
whom Allah and His Messenger have been explained to them. Yes, Islam has been explained to them correctly, and the Prophet Muhammad has been explained to them correctly, and this deen and the realities of this deen has been explained correctly to them. These people, if they still refuse and they die on refusal, these people enter into hell according to the belief of Muslims. We have a third category. What happens if somebody who has Islam has been explained to him and the Prophet Muhammad has been explained to him, but in the wrong way? Islam is terrorism. Islam is doing this. The women are oppressed. All these things. There's been a misinformation and misrepresentation of the religion. These people don't know the true, pristine understanding of Islam hasn't come to them correctly. Some understanding is distorted. Understanding of Islam. Now the ulama, like Imam al-Ghazali and other ulama of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they said these people won't be judged as kuffar. Why? Because Islam hasn't reached them properly. It's only when Islam has reached them correctly and Islam has explained to them correctly, and then they die and they refuse and they die in that, and then they will enter into hell. But these people haven't had the opportunity for Islam to be explained to them correctly. All they know is bombing and killing and this and blah 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 and these type of things. And they're scared of Islam because Allah Azza wa Jalla won't throw these people into hell. This is the opinion of most of the ulama in this day and age, ulama Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Ghazali and people who follow his way. And this is the opinion of most ulama, of the ulama in Yemen, ulama Ahl Sunnah in Yemen, and ulama in Syria and other places. Which doesn't remove the obligation of you and I of explaining Islam correctly to people.
Forgiveness and His garden, and to protect themselves and their families from the fire. By conforming to His commands and avoiding disobedience, God has said, hasten to forgiveness from your Lord, and a garden the breadth of which is the
Allah says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah said, rush, hasten, run towards Allah's forgiveness. Which means that Allah knows we're going to sin. Allah knows we're going to make mistakes. Allah said, I know you're going to make mistakes. I know you're going to fall. I know you're going to do things that are not right. But rush to me and I'll forgive you. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Rush, hasten, be quick to Allah's maghfirah.
And God the Exalted says, O you who believe, protect yourselves and your families from a fire.
How do we protect ourselves and our families from the fire? What do we do to protect ourselves and our families from the fire? With taqwa. With taqwa, yeah.
The fuel of which is people and stones, appointed angels, severe and powerful, who do not disobey God in what He commands them, and do as they are commanded. 4. The reward of the pious. God the Exalted says, he who does good, whether he be male or female, and is a believer, we shall cause him to live a good life.
You will have a good life. Who? من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى. Male or female, if you do good works, عمل صالحا, good works, صالح. What does صالح mean? Pure, sincerely for Allah, not full of jealousy, not full of showing off, not full of arrogance when you think yourself better than anybody else in your act of worship, in your Quran, in your fiqh, in your classes, in your whatever, in your prayer, in your worship. You're looking down on everybody else because, mashallah alaykum, you've had the opportunity to learn or to know a little bit more, or you can understand Arabic and you think yourself better than anybody else. That's not amal salih. That's not amal salih.
And God has promised those of you who believe and do good works that He shall cause them to rule in the land as He caused them before them to rule.
وَعَلَى اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah will, as promised, those who believe in Allah and do good works. Not just that you believe, but do good works. Allah will make you leaders, rulers in this world. As Allah has made those rule in this world before. So true khilafah only comes by Allah's promise to those who do good work, believe and do good works. If people believe and don't do good works, they won't be leaders. Or they may be leaders, but they won't be leaders that Allah wants.
That He shall establish firmly for them their religion, which He has chosen for them, for that He shall change their fears into security. And he says, exalted is he, those who believe and do good works, we shall not waste the reward of those who do excellent works. They shall have gardens of Eden beneath them, which rivers flow. Therein they shall be adorned with bracelets of gold, wearing green clothes of silk and brocade, leaning there upon couches. How fair the reward and how excellent the resting place. And God says, exalted is he, those who believe and do good works, the all-merciful shall give them affection. Ibn Abbas.
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا. سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا. Allah Azza wa Jal promises to give to those who believe and do good works. Not just enough that الذين آمنوا. لا. Allah doesn't want people just to آمنوا, to believe. وعملوا الصالحات. سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا. Allah will give them wood, and wood is translated as affection. Allah will love them. You want Allah to love you? Believe and do good works. Allah will love you. One of the ulama in Yemen, he repeated this verse a whole night in Salah. A whole night he repeated this verse. ودا سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا. The whole night repeating it. He said to me afterwards, why are you repeating the same word afterwards? Every time I repeated it, a new understanding came to me. A new meaning came to me. Not wahi. Not wahi. There's no wahi after the Prophet, but a meaning came every time I said wudda.
Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said about this last passage, he will love them and cause the believers to love them also.
Allah. Ibn Abbas, the scholar of this ummah, what do you say about this verse? يحبهم ويحبهم إلى المؤمنين. Allah loves them and Allah makes people love them. يحبهم ويحبهم.
The Messenger of God said, God the Exalted says, he who shows hostility to a wali of mine, on him I declare war.
من عاد لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب. Whoever harms a friend of mine, living or dead, even if he's dead, doesn't matter. Allah has promised I'm going to wage war on these people.
My servant draws near to me with nothing. I love more than that which I have made incumbent upon him. And my servant ceases not to draw nearer to me with supererogatory devotions until I love him. Once I love him, I become his hearing which he hears, his eyesight which he sees, his hand which he strikes, and his foot on which he walks. Should he ask of me, I shall give him. And should he seek my protection, I shall protect him. Therefore, he who does what is victory upon him, then adds supererogatory acts of devotion and abundance in order to draw nearer to God, God honours him with this great love which renders every movement by God and for God. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also relates from God the Exalted, when my servant draws nearer to me by a handspan, I draw nearer.
Understand this, that when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in this hadith that a person who draws near to Allah, a person draws nearer to Allah with nothing more beloved to Allah than the 5 prayers. The 5 prayers are the prayers you should be doing. Then after that, a person will continue doing sunnahs after sunnahs until Allah loves him. When does the love come? When does the love come? When does the love come? Read the hadith. When does the love come? After where? After the fard? Or after the sunnah? When does Allah's love come to you?
After the Nawafil.
Muhammad is? You haven't got the book. Those who got the book. When does Allah love you? At what point does Allah love you?
After the Nawafil.
After the sunnah?
After the sunnah. I mean, people who just do the fard, what they should be doing, people say, oh, he's a good Muslim. Why? Oh, he prays, he fasts. Actually, you should be doing it anyway. And people, when they get married, they say, oh, He's a good man, that man. Oh, what makes him good? MashaAllah, he prays. But yeah, every Muslim should be praying. What makes him different? That's not a sign of anything good. That's a sign that he's a Muslim, which has to be able to marry him. You know what? Yeah, what is sunnahs? Is the sunnah anything extra? Is it learning? Is it doing i'tikaf? What extra things? Because these are the things that make Allah love you. So it's only then when you start doing the sunnahs that Allah starts to love you. And when Allah starts to love you, then you become excited which He sees, and hearing which He hears, and walking which He walks, and so forth.
The Messenger of God also relates from God the Exalted. When my servant draws near to me by a handspan, I draw near to him by an arm span. When he draws near to me an arm span, I draw near to him 2 arm spans. When he comes to me walking, I come to him running. The servant draws near to his Lord by obeying and serving him.
How do we come closer to Allah? بالطاعات وخدمته. By worshipping Allah and serving Allah Azza wa Jal, that's when we come closer. And when we make one step towards Allah, Allah makes 2 steps towards you. Not that Allah can walk. No. Allah has a body and feet like these people. The Christians believe that God has a hand and face and got a literally like a body. Our belief is that Allah has a body or hand. That's a belief, that's the aqeedah of the Christians. Allah, laysa kamithlihi shay, nothing like Allah Azza wa Jal.
The Lord draws near to His servant by His favour and mercy. The Messenger ﷺ relates as well from God the Exalted. I have prepared for my virtuous servants in paradise that which no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no human heart has ever imagined. In the Psalms, it is said, O son of Adam, obey me, I shall fill your heart with independence, your 2 hands in provision, and your body with wealth. And God said to the world, O world, he who serves me, serve him.
We always mention this, فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا. Allah has revealed to the dunya, Ya dunya, O world, مَنْ خَدَمَنِي فَاخْتِمِهِ. The one who serves me, then serve him. فَاخْتِمِهِ. وَمَنْ خَدَمَكِ فَاسْتَخْتِمِهِ. And the one who chases you and serves you the dunya, instead of serving Allah, serves the dunya, running after it, chasing it, spending more time on it. That Allah has told the dunya, make it a slave to you. And we always mention this, we mention many times. Ya dunya, man khadamni fakhadimi, wa man khadamaki fastakhdimi. Check that, check the general principles. Bishr bin Harith.
Yeah, Bishop bin Harith, may God's mercy be upon him, said, people of goodness possess both this world and the next.
ذهب أهل الخير بالدنيا والآخرة. You get this world and the next world.
And Yahya ibn Mu'adh has said, sons of this world are served by slaves, but sons of the hereafter are served by free men. O my brother, if you wish to have a rank that does not vanish, eminence that does not diminish, honor that is permanent, and glory that is perpetual, then obey the Lord, for God has placed all these ranks, rank, eminence, honor, and glory in His obedience. He graciously bestows.
Because most people look for these things in this world, yes? Honor and rank and position. Most people look at this in the wrong place, in this world. Don't look at it here. If that's what you want, don't look for it here. Don't chase for it here. Don't cheat and steal and kill for it because you want that here. If you want it, here's the place to get it. The next life is the place to get it. Then what do I do to get the next life? Do good works. And you'll have position and prestige and love and people liking you and everything else in the next world. I'm here, you're not going to get much.
In His obedience, He graciously bestows these things on those of His servants who obey Him. He has honoured servants who obeyed Him by freeing them from servitude to their whims and appetites, purifying their hearts from impurity and attending.
What's freedom? Not Ahmed. Freedom, what's freedom? People search freedom. We want freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of rights. Women always search for their freedom. We want to be free. What does freedom mean? What does freedom mean to you? Just to you, to be free. Not someone not to force you, not to live under a bad regime or people who are killing other people. That type of freedom, yes? Freedom to come to the mosque, freedom to pray, freedom to wear what we want. That's freedom. There's another type of freedom. Freedom from your nafs. Freedom from your shahawat. Freedom from shaitan's power over you. That's, as our ulama say, that's a real freedom. When you're completely free, and when you're free from your nafs, when you're free from shaitan, and when you control your nafs and you're telling your nafs what to do, then you're free. Until then, you're a prisoner. You may be free walking around doing what you want and stuff like that, but there's always, and perhaps there's no bad leader or no oppressive rulers ruling you. But you have shaitan, your nafs, oppressing you and telling you what to do. You're not free. You're a slave to your desires. People hear that saying. You're a slave to your desires. You walk past certain types of desires. A woman walks past you, you can't even look down. You're a slave. You think you're controlling this? Yeah, it's you. It's not you. It's your nafs. Look at this woman. Eat what you want. Look at her. Say what you want. Do what you want. Sleep what you want. You're a slave. Then when are you free? When your nafs tells you, look, you say, no, I'm not looking. I'm not listening to you. Then you're free. When your nafs tells you to sleep, time for fajr, not go to the mosque. When your nafs says you talk bad about him, or listen to the backbiting, or listen to the slander, that's haram according to the sharia. When your nafs tells you to do that, and you say, no, I'm not listening to you, I'm free. Then you're free. And that's what the ulama, Alawi al Haddad, that's a complete freedom. This world is a prison of the believer, and the heaven of the non-believer. And the next world is the heaven of the believer and the prison of the non-believer.
Attending to things ephemeral, wrought at their hands, supernatural events and wondrous miracles such as the knowledge of the unseen, the abundance of barakah and the answering of prayers. Thereafter people took up their lights, following their footsteps, and told God to relieve their own hardships for their sake, requested him by their right with him to protect them from harm, beseeched him by their footprints to fulfill their requests, and sought the barakah of the dust of their tomb. But God gave them more than that. He cast off his light into their hearts, filled them with a purity of his knowledge, and love comforted them in their retreat to the remembrance of him, so that they felt estranged from his creation, prepared for them permanent bliss in the abode of bliss. Promised them to see his noble countenance, and greater still will be his satisfaction with them. That is their great triumph.
ذلك هو الفوز العظيم. مثل هذا فيعمل العاملون. That is the greatest fawz, the greatest success when you have this complete freedom. You don't need anybody. You don't need anybody to say, to give you the thumbs up. As long as Allah has given you the thumbs up, Allah is happy with you. It doesn't matter. When you have this light in your heart, nur in your heart, iman, yaqeen, Allah. We'll stop there, inshallah. Any questions?